unless you make it awkward. But we don't have to worry about that, because there's going to be nothing awkward about this speech. After all, we're only going to be talking about physically intimate romantic relationships. Okay, so it's a little awkward, and that's why no one wants to talk about it. But we need to talk about it to address society's negative and harmful attitude on physical relationships. Now, what do I mean by that? I definitely don't mean that our culture under-popularizes physical relationships. But instead, they put a stigma on physical relationships that they're just physical. You can enter into a relationship and leave a relationship, and making those decisions are just as easy as any other decisions. And if you leave a physical relationship without any physical consequences, then you have escaped any consequences that there possibly could be. But according to science, this is not the case. A physical relationship is not just physical. It can impact your brain in a very real way. And we're going to be looking at how this is true by examining 3 key neurological chemicals, how they affect an individual's ability to make decisions, and an individual's ability to bond with others. Now, when talking about romantic relationships, we need to start at the beginning of this complicated puzzle. What is that exciting feeling you get when you're first attracted to someone? It feels like you're going to go on a roller coaster, or that butterflies have inhabited your stomach. You can't eat, sleep, or do anything at all. You have been shocked by Cupid's arrow. Well, no, that's not Cupid and that's not butterflies. That's dopamine, the neurological chemical that your brain releases to reward you for various behaviors. Dopamine feels good, sometimes too good, to the point where your body actually becomes addicted to it. According to the National Institute of Drugs and Abuse, quote, most drugs of abuse directly or indirectly target your brain's reward system by flooding the circuits with dopamine, end quote. Meaning that the main reason many drugs are addictive is because of dopamine, which is a drug. But there's a big difference between how we treat physical relationships and drugs. With relationships, they're treated so casually. But with drugs, they should only be used for a constructive purpose. But really, we should apply some of that attitude towards physical relationships. Because just as you wouldn't want your friend addicted to an abusive substance, you wouldn't want them addicted to an abusive relationship. Now, that dopamine high you experience at the beginning of a relationship doesn't last forever. After the honeymoon phase, it tends to wear off a little bit. And this is where the bonding hormones really take the stage. Oxytocin is the female bonding hormone, and it's nicknamed the cuddle hormone. But why is it nicknamed the cuddle hormone? Is it because it's released when you cuddle? Or when it's released, it makes you want to cuddle? Both. In her book, Monogamy, a Myth or a Possibility, Dr. Sue Johnson explains the effects of oxytocin on prairie voles. Now, these little rodents were chosen as the ideal test subject because they display loyalty levels that are similar to those in humans. They have one mate their entire lives. Her book states, quote, increasing oxytocin causes the rodents to cuddle more and mate less. But blocking oxytocin causes them to mate, but they don't cuddle, end quote. You may be thinking, okay, so oxytocin causes rodents to want to be together. But how powerful really is it in humans? Very. One can observe the strength of an oxytocin bond by looking at the relationship between a mother and her child. When a mother holds the child and cuddles with it, oxytocin floods her brain. Because of that incredible chemical, that child can do anything. Anything. And that mother will still love it and still be there for it. And it's that same powerful bond that's between a man and a woman. And according to a study done by the University of Zurich in Switzerland, not only does it cause a woman to want to be with a man, but oxytocin actually causes an increased level of trust, inducing the woman to trust the man, whether he deserves it or not. On the flip side, there's vasopressin. Vasopressin is the male version of oxytocin. It's what causes a man to be bound to his mate and his offspring. Dr. Thomas Insel of Emory University performed a study on male prairie voles, and his results found, quote, giving a male vasopressin causes it to stay with its mate, whereas blocking it prevents pair bonding from forming, end quote. And not only did the rodent without vasopressin abandon his mate, but he also abandoned his offspring, leaving him without any ties to the family. So you can see how oxytocin and vasopressin are good hormones. They keep a family together. But they can also have devastating effects in the wrong situations. An example of this is my friend, Abby. Now, Abby isn't her real name, but that's what I'm going to be calling her. Abby was a beautiful girl who had a good job, and she was really smart. But she got a boyfriend who was abusive to her. And one night it got so bad that he grabbed her by the throat and left such damage that she had to go to the hospital. After this incident, Abby left her boyfriend. But after just a month of separation, she went back to him. These hormones can be incredibly powerful, especially if you don't know they exist. But what happens when you do leave a relationship? Do these chemicals suddenly stop affecting you? No. Because when you break a relationship, you're not just breaking a relationship. You are physically breaking neurological connections that have been formed in your brain. And when these connections are broken, it becomes harder for them to form in the future. This is your brain's protection mechanism saying, hey, last time I was in a relationship, I released a lot of oxytocin or vasopressin, and then that bond was broken. So next time, I won't release as much. It gets to the point where Dr. Mckinley and Dr. Freda Bush describe in their book, Hooked, that relationships and breaking up is a lot like duct tape. The first time you're in a relationship, duct tape is applied to your arm. The first time you break up, that duct tape is ripped off. It hurts really bad. The second time you're in a relationship, that same duct tape is applied back on your arm. And the second time you break up, it's ripped off again. It hurts, but it's not as bad. It gets to the point after so many breakups that duct tape, it stops sticking. There's no more bond, no more connection, and your arm is numb. If you've ever met someone who jumps from a relationship to a relationship, their brain is no longer forming that connectedness. No more oxytocin or vasopressin. All that's left is that quick dopamine high, a fleeting feeling that doesn't last. So please, if you remember nothing else from this speech, remember that a physical relationship is not just physical. It was designed by God to make you one with another person, and your brain will attempt to do